When we think about the biggest decisions in life, we usually jump to things like buying a house or picking a career. But today, we're going to talk about the one that really might just top them all, choosing a life partner.
And look, this isn't just a feeling. A massive 80-year study out of Harvard set out to find the secret to a happy life. And you know what they found? It wasn't money. It wasn't fame. It wasn't career success. The number one single biggest factor in our overall happiness is the quality of our romantic relationships. I mean, that's a pretty heavy thing to hear, right? If this one choice has that much power over our entire lives, our well-being, shouldn't we approach it with a little more than just, hoping for the best? How can we actually be smart about this?
So, where do we even begin? Well, it might surprise you to hear this, but our first tool, it isn't about gut feelings or that initial spark. It's actually about some pretty simple but really powerful math. Okay, so this whole idea is about what's called conscious filtering. Just picture this. You sit down and come up with 3 absolute non-negotiable things you need in a partner. Let's say, just for fun, they have to share your sense of humor, they got to be financially responsible, and they absolutely have to want kids. Now just assume that each one of those filters cuts the dating pool in half.
So what happens when you do that? The result is kind of staggering, actually. By applying just those 3 simple filters, you have immediately gotten rid of a whopping 87.5% of the entire dating pool.
And that is the real power of being selective. See, it's not about being picky for no reason. It's about being strategic. You stop wasting your time and energy in that huge 87.5% zone, and you focus everything on that top 12.5%. The slice where a genuinely great relationship is most likely to be hiding.
Okay, I can practically hear you thinking it. This all sounds very logical, but what about chemistry? That spark. What about love at first sight? And listen, that is a totally fair question.
But here's the most important part to understand. This system isn't about killing romance. It's about giving romance the best possible soil to grow in. You're not trying to replace chemistry with a checklist. What you're doing is creating this pre-qualified garden of people where that magic, that spark, has the absolute best chance to blossom into something real and something that lasts.
All right, so if we're going to create these filters, what should they even be? Let's take this whole intelligent approach and apply it to the big 3 things that always come up: money, looks, and just how similar you really need to be.
First up, let's talk about money. Now, the common filter here is something like, how much money do they make, right? But the smarter filter is more like, are our fundamental attitudes about money, work, and ambition actually compatible? One's just a number, the other is about whether you can build a life together. It asks the real question, when it comes to finances, are you guys going to be a team, or are you playing 2 totally different games?
Next, let's get into physical attraction. We all know it's a huge deal, especially right at the start. But how do we use it as an intelligent filter, not just a gut reaction?
So the typical question is, am I attracted to this person right now? But the smarter, more long-term question is, okay, how much are these looks going to matter in 10, 20, or even 50 years after we've gone through all of life's ups and downs together? Just thinking about that for a second really shifts your focus from a short-term spark to a long-term partnership.
And finally, we've got similarity. We've all heard that old saying, opposites attract. But does that really hold up when we're talking about lifelong happiness? Well, the data seems to suggest something pretty different.
It turns out that real, lasting compatibility often comes from being aligned in a few key areas. And we're not talking about liking the same movies. It's about sharing core personality traits. Like, are you both introverts who need quiet time to recharge? Or are you both social butterflies? It's about having some shared interests that give you a foundation of fun you can always come back to. And maybe most critically, it's about wanting the same things out of life and sharing the same deep-down values. That, right there, is the bedrock of a real partnership.
So let's pull all of this together. The real shift here is moving from that passive, I just hope I get lucky kind of mindset to an active, conscious approach. It's really about taking the driver's seat and deciding what you're actually looking for.
And here's a super simple process to get you started. First, take some real time to define your non-negotiables. What are those 3 or 4 things you absolutely need for happiness? Second, be brutally honest with yourself about the difference between a need and a want. And third, actually start using these filters to focus your search. It's really about working smarter, not just harder. So we'll leave you with one last question to really chew on. Take a look back at your dating history. Are the criteria you've been using, are they actually leading you toward a life partner, or are they just keeping you stuck in the same old pattern? The answer to that question might just change everything for you.